Welcome back after reading week. I hope you've done plenty. And what you should be moving now towards is Robert Evans's book on the making of the Habsburg monarchy. It is not an easy book to read, and one of the things that I reckon to do in the classes is, in a sense, provide you, I say classes, these videos, to provide you with enough background so that you will be able to understand what he's talking about. Because it's not altogether a straightforward book. It's a very, very multi-layered book. It's a very rich book. In fact, it's probably one of the greatest history books written, which is why you need to tackle it. And what I propose to do in this video is to give a little introduction to what Robert Evans is saying. And remarkably, I have Robert here. And he's delighted. This isn't Robert Evans, by the way. This is Robert Evans, a bird. And he is nevertheless a major authority on Evans's work. And he is able to describe to you the contents of the book. It's very fortunate that I can understand him, because what he has just said is that universalism is the key expression. Universalism as being the fundamental idea of what Evans is saying. And what Robert the Bird and I will do is discuss the meaning of universalism and what this word means. And the first way of looking at it is to go and, yes, I think we've got the point. We're going to discuss universalism. The class, I think it was, when I explained what Catholic meant. Catholic does not mean a religious, it's not really a religious idea. It doesn't refer to a denomination. Catholic means universal. And the idea behind the Roman Catholic Church is that it is Roman, it is based in Rome, with the Bishop of Rome at its head. It is Roman and it is universal. It should be the church for all people. That's the idea behind the word Catholic and what universal means. It means a single type of religion, a single scheme of faith. And the point that Evans starts off with is a really critical one. The Catholic Church had suffered a major assault under the impact of Protestantism. It had lost large chunks of Europe. It had lost much of Germany, particularly the north and the centre. It had lost the Austrian lands, with the exception of Tyrol and Carniola and bits of Carinthia. It had lost much of France. It had lost England and Scotland. It had lost Scandinavia. The Catholic Church looks as if it is in retreat. And yet, what does Protestantism offer? Protestantism is itself divided. It is divided up into the denominations that I've went through in class between Anabaptists, Lutherans, Calvinists, Unitarians, Adamites, all of these conflicting and competing groups. It is not the alternative to the Roman Church. It is not Catholic in the sense of universal. It is fragmented, and it doesn't correspond, therefore, to what people understand as being philosophically necessary at the time. And I want to move on a little bit onto the philosophy. We're going to go into this in more detail in other videos. People believe in an interconnected world. They believe in a world of, if not uniformity, then a hidden uniformity that blends and keeps everything together. They believe in the philosophy of empire. They believe that there should be a harmonious, universal Christendom, which is ruled over or arbitrated at least by a single figure who is able to impose peace and bring order and regularity to people's lives. If one looks at all the great philosophers, from Erasmus, the humanist who I've mentioned, Dante, very important in the origins of humanism in Italy back in the 14th century. I was just reading today Divine Comedy by Dante, and he laments the passing, the death of Emperor Henry VII in, must be about 1320, something like that. He laments the death of Henry VII, the emperor, who tried to bring order, and as a result, Dante puts Henry VII in paradise, whereas most emperors, of course, end up in other places. So, in other words, there's a belief cultivated by humanism, cultivated by thinkers, that there should be a universal political idea that rests on a philosophical idea of a universal ruler and of a universal peace. And this, of course, leads seamlessly to the Habsburgs, because the Habsburgs are the nearest thing that anybody has got to a universal ruler of the world. They control bits of all four continents. They're active in Africa, along the African coast, and Charles V commissions one of the most luxurious tapestry sets to commemorate his conquest of Tunis on the North African coast. They're active, obviously, in the New World, in the Americas, all the way from Florida, all the way down via Mexico, right down to southern Chile. They're active in that whole area. They push up into what is now New Mexico and into California. The Habsburgs are American as well as European and African, and they are Asian because their galleons sail to the great port that they set up at Manila, and from Manila they are selling samurai armor, or the skins for samurai armor, to the Japanese, and building trading entrepôts along the Asian shore. This is a world empire, and at the same time, most of Europe is Habsburg. All of Central Europe is Habsburg. The Holy Roman Empire is Habsburg. Bohemia, Hungary, Austrian lands, reaching down into northern Italy, reaching down into the Balkans. All of that is Habsburg. They're Holy Roman Emperors. They control Spain. They'll get Portugal in the 1580s. They're married into all of the other families. People tend to forget that Philip II of Spain is Philip I of England. So, in other words, they have, for a time, for 4 years, 3 or 4 years, a King of England. And imagine if Mary Tudor had been able to produce heirs, then the Habsburgs would have been rulers of England. So they are territorially universal, and they are biologically universal. So we're beginning to see what universalism means. We're beginning to, if you like, dissect its components. There's a religious component there. There's a philosophical component that teaches everything being interrelated. Everything is related to a single one. And sometimes people will attempt to demonstrate that universalism in an acrostic. Essentially, it's what A-E-I-O-U means, the Habsburg motif, and they will draw very bizarre geometrical figures that they believe sums up in a single character the essential nature of the universe. So there's a philosophical idea, and on top of that there's a political idea. And this is what Evans is really arguing early on in his book, that there is a universalism that Protestantism can't reach and doesn't get to. Yet, of course, what universalism is confronted by is particularism. It's all very well and good saying, there's the Catholic Church, universal, I'm a universal monarch, I want you to fall into line. That's not going to happen. And there will be tendencies amongst the nobility, amongst religious groups, amongst the diets, to resist that Catholic Habsburg universal mission. I'll finish there.